All right, good morning, everybody. It is 11:05 in the morning, and we are so grateful that you're on the line. My name is Michelle Comer. I am the Commissioner of Commerce with the state of North Dakota. I am standing in with these opening remarks from my colleague Eric Spencer from GNDC. The Department of Commerce has been partnering with GNDC over the past several weeks to deliver important information to you as quickly as we can. He will join us as soon as he can get on the line. I want to let you know that if you have joined through Teams, you have done the right thing. Every line is on mute this morning with the exception of the speakers. We're going to get started here in a moment with remarks from the best Lieutenant Governor in the nation, Brent Sanford. But before I introduce him, I want to make sure that if you do have control of your line, while we should have the ability to mute you from a central location, please be sure that your control is showing muted as well for the ease of everyone else's listening experience. So with that, I want to turn the call over to the Lieutenant Governor of North Dakota, Brent Sanford, to welcome you all here today. All right, I think we're having some sound difficulties. So I'm going to proceed on, and if we're able to have the Lieutenant Governor join us, we will do that. I would like, again, to introduce myself. I work for the state of North Dakota, which means that I work for you. And our mission at the Department of Commerce is to attract, expand, and retain wealth in North Dakota. And as I have said very frequently in the past several weeks, none of us could have imagined how our focus would shift onto the retention of wealth. My team at the Department of Commerce has been remissioned to dedicate all of our resources toward helping you navigate this pandemic as smoothly as possible to mitigate the economic impact to our state. In a state our size, business owners are not some anonymous entity. Businesses of all sizes are owned and led and managed by our friends and neighbors. And it is because of that that we have not and will not stop working for you. Led by the Department of Commerce, we have created the Economic Resiliency Team to ensure a coordinated approach to the COVID-19 pandemic. This task force includes agency leaders from the Bank of North Dakota, the Department of Commerce, Job Service North Dakota, Worker Safety Insurance, Labor and Human Rights, our Commissioner of Indian Affairs, and our Banking Commissioner, as well as our elected officials, Al Jaeger, our Secretary of State, John Gottfried, our Commissioner of Insurance, Ryan Rauschenberger, our Commissioner of Tax, and Doug Goring, the Ag Commissioner. We have also been actively coordinating with partners like GNDC, as I mentioned, as well as local and regional chambers and economic development groups. I'm proud of these partners and the manner in which we have banded together to support you. This team's goal is to provide just-in-time information to businesses and employers in a rapidly changing environment by ensuring a whole-of-government approach to COVID-19, recognizing that for many businesses and employees alike, the pandemic may be creating your first experience accessing financial support from the government. We want to make this as clear and as easy as possible. We are consolidating information and resources from across the federal government and state agencies that interact with business so that you and employers and businesses don't have to navigate these systems on your own. These efforts include dedicating researchers to understand federal legislation as it relates to employers and employees and translating that into action. Today, you'll be hearing from a number of speakers that are going to focus on the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, otherwise known as the CARE Act. Launching a one-stop web page with COVID-19 related employer resources, combining information from across all of state government, including call recordings, handouts to guide you, and important links. You can find this information on ndresponse.gov. Pick business and employer resources, and you will find the recordings from our phone calls as well as leave behinds and materials that we are developing to help you understand new information in real time. We are coordinating efforts with local and regional chambers and economic development organizations so that efforts are not duplicated and information is shared fluidly. The focus of today's business briefing is emergency business financing. This information has developed rapidly and it is still developing. We are planning to host a call like this for at least the next 4 weeks on the same day and the same time. As details continue to develop, the information we cover will become more and more specific. Today, we will hear from several state and federal leaders with core content being focused on financial resources available and expected to become available through federal legislation referred to as the CARE Act. As we look forward, please remember that your registration feedback is used to guide the content for these calls, as well as plan for the next call. Please provide your specific questions in the survey that will follow this call. As I mentioned, we will be posting materials to the newly created webpage for employer resources. We are pointing a number of websites to this page. You can get there from the governor's page, the Commerce Department's page, nd.gov, the Department of Health, and then directly at ndresponse.gov by choosing the Business and Employers button, where you will find tabs for financial, labor, insurance, tax, safety information. Today's information will be found under the Financial tab, and this information will continue to develop. On the call today, provided that our technology works, you will hear updates from Al Jaeger, our Secretary of State, John Gottfried, the Commissioner of Insurance, Rick Clayberg, the President of North Dakota's Banker Association, and the bulk of our information today will be provided by Al Hout, the District Director of the Small Business Administration, to talk about SBA disaster relief and the CARES Act as it provides to you. I need to reiterate that information is still developing and not all details are known at this time. Resources relating to our discussion today will be posted after this call and continually updated. Please check the watermark of all materials for their date and time stamp as you access them to ensure that you are receiving the most current information. I will stop there and I will be pleased and honored.
Michelle, I'm on now.
Thank you. Thank you. I would like to stop there and introduce the best Lieutenant Governor in the nation, Brent Sanford. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you all for joining the business briefing call today. I had quite a speech rolling before I figured out I wasn't on, but I'll pick back up. Michelle covered a lot of the details, but I want to thank GNDC for hosting the call. I want to thank Michelle and the Commerce Department for a great job leading a coordinated effort to assist businesses in this crisis that's upon us. I want to thank the state agency leaders that are collaborating and working as one, elected offices and appointed leaders of cabinet agencies. Thank you for working as one. It's gonna take collaboration and communication to move forward throughout all of this. I want to thank the federal delegation for your hard work supporting our needs and listening to our needs. We're anxiously awaiting what the package will be, the relief package that will have a strong focus on business owners, on businesses, on employers. I want to thank you as business leaders of companies, both large and small, entrepreneurs, large companies, for the sacrifices you're making daily as the economic engine of our state in these difficult times. I tell you what, this is something that's upon us as a great challenge. We in the governor's office are trying to balance the public health calamity that is upon us with the economic effects of any restrictions we put in place. And it's quite a balancing act. We're calm, we're staying on it, we're keeping up with the data, trying to figure out how to not overwhelm the hospital and ICU and respirators and ventilators levels that we as a state can handle with a large accumulation of COVID-19 cases. This respiratory flu is much worse than the regular flu. The fatality rate is much higher. So this is a real issue. You only have to look to New York City, New Orleans, Kirkland, Washington, Italy, Spain to see that where you end up is rationing healthcare, and you end up with people with respiratory distress, elderly people, people that have respiratory problems, gasping for air and not able to have enough ventilators. So this is a horrific thought. We're trying to make sure we flatten the curve and have as less of extent on the economics of the state as possible. I will take one question that came in. I would like to take it. It's a shelter-in-place clarification. Those in the eastern part of the state are wondering what's going to happen to us if we do shelter-in-place like Minnesota and other states. And I think that the key here is looking at what shelter-in-place is defined as in these other states compared to what is happening in North Dakota. You actually get to a very similar list of what is determined as essential services and still allowed to circulate. So in Minnesota, it's called shelter in place, but you can still get groceries, go get takeout food, go to your doctor appointments, etc. Most states have daycare open in some shape or form. And so really it gets to be a similar list as what we have in North Dakota. We're very happy with the direction we've gone. We feel we have a few more tweaks to make, but people are sending in their requests to be on the essential services lists that are as they're seeing in other states, and I can tell you that's not the direction that we're headed today. We feel that the restrictions on moving around and the restrictions in the public spaces that have happened to date are where we want to be today. So hopefully that answers that question. Combine that with the great job we've been doing in North Dakota as businesses on self-regulating, with individuals self-regulating, practicing the social distancing, operating with the correct flu etiquette. And these are things that we're doing as North Dakotans, and we feel that really is limiting the community spread, and we're doing a good job with that. So we want to continue forward with that direction. And again, I want to thank you all for being on the call, and I'll turn it back over to Michelle.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. With that, I am going to introduce our Secretary of State, Al Jaeger, for some discussion on remote notarization and some great work they've been doing there.
Michelle, if you will please move on to the next speaker. I'm working on getting a hold of Secretary of State.
Absolutely. Thank you, Maria. I'd like to introduce our Insurance Commissioner, John Godfrey, to share some information that's developing in his area.
Thanks, Michelle. Want to make sure you can hear me.
We've got you.
Perfect. I just wanted to give a couple updates to everybody. Thank you for joining the call. This is, again, truly an all of the above government response. Wanted to make sure we're clarifying on the business interruption policies and business disruption policies. Those were generally not designed to price to provide coverage against communicable diseases such as COVID-19, and therefore they generally often include exclusions for that risk. As many of you know, insurance generally works fairly well and remains affordable when there's a relatively manageable number of claims and they're spread across a broader group. And therefore, it's not typically well suited for a global pandemic such as we're facing, where virtually every policyholder would suffer significant losses at the same time for an extended period. Our insurance sector obviously remains strong, but if insurance companies were required to, or we do something that forced them to cover these claims, this could create some substantial solvency risk for our sector and significantly undermine the ability of insurers to pay for other claims and potentially exacerbate the negative financial and economic impacts our country is currently facing. So just wanted to clarify that. That's kind of where we're at, and that's why we're encouraging folks to continue to look at the many options that are either coming out of the stimulus package or looking through what we're doing at the state here. You'll hear from many speakers who have other options that are probably faster and probably better, and we'll leave an insurance sector when we get through this. That's one of our main concerns, looking at how do we balance that need for the consumers versus ensuring that we have an insurance sector to come back to when the pandemic is over. One other piece I want to touch on is healthcare. We've gotten a lot of questions from employers regarding health insurance, and if I'm furloughing an employee or laying off an employee and I want to keep them on the rolls, is either on payroll or keep their benefits flowing, is there options to do that? We're hoping to provide more guidance in the coming days on exactly what that means and add some consistency to what our carriers are doing across the state. But for the time being, I would encourage you to reach out to your carrier if you have questions of that nature. They've all assured me that they're going to be extremely flexible, working within the confines of their contract and being as flexible as they possibly can to keep those employees on the benefit plan if you want that to happen. But like I said, there'll be hopefully more guidance coming in the coming days. One other small piece that I want to add is we've issued a total of 6 bulletins to date. Those are available on our website at insurance.nd.gov. One I want to draw your attention to is 2020-4. This was an opportunity for us to reach out to our auto carriers and encourage them to expand coverage on personal autos to delivery. I know many of you are changing your business model, looking at how do we provide delivery of goods to our consumers across the state. Generally, if you're having your employee use their personal vehicle to do that, that commercial activity would not be covered. We've asked our auto insurers in our state that operate in our state to expand coverage to those personal vehicles during this time of this emergency, so that we can hopefully stay ahead of any potential claims that may be coming down where somebody's delivering some food to consumers around the state, get into an accident, something happens, and then that coverage would potentially be denied. So I encourage you, if you have your employees that are operating a delivery capacity right now using their personal vehicles, to have them reach out to their auto insurance carrier and ask for that extension. That could save a lot of headaches going down the road. But like I said, we've got other information that's available on ndresponse.gov as well as the insurance.nd.gov. With that, I'll turn it back to Michelle to see if Secretary Jager is ready.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Gottfried. And yes, Secretary Jager should be ready to go. Secretary Jager?
Thank you, Michelle. We're quite aware that situations exist that may not make it possible or convenient for a signer to physically appear before a notary public, and that certainly is something that we're encountering now when in-person contact should be avoided. Nevertheless, business and commerce must continue to function when the need exists for a notarial certificate. And so to address these situations where physical appearance is not possible, North Dakota law does allow notaries public commissioned in this state to perform remote online notarization. And this is specifically covered in state law. And so late yesterday afternoon, a message was sent to over 13,000 notaries by email indicating that this option exists. A message also was sent to the state's 53 county recorders about this, and we emailed it to many of the trade associations, lenders, title companies, bar association, and any other number of groups to make them aware that this option exists in North Dakota law. For a notary to be able to do this, there are 2 requirements in the law. The first one is that they must notify our office that the notary public will be performing notarial acts with respect to remotely located individuals. And they also need to identify the technology that notary public intends to use by providing the name of the provider of the communication technology that will be used for the remote online notarization. And they have been given instructions as to where to send that information. They've also been given a list of providers that provide this service. We have 6 names. We don't endorse any particular one or recommend one. We just wanted to give notaries some avenue where they could check and see how these services can be provided. We suspect that since this notice just came out yesterday, notaries may not be geared up for a little bit in terms of providing these services. But if there's any questions, not only will it be on the North Dakota response page, but the information will be on our page. And so that's sos.nd.gov, and the information will be on our website as well. And it actually is as well. And we will also be having a spreadsheet that will show notaries who have informed us that they're going to be performing remote notarizations, and that they are connected with a provider. The notary has been told that they need to do some checking to make sure that the provider is able to provide the services required under state law. One significant thing is that the provider has to comply with retaining an audiovisual recording for 10 years. And so most of the providers have this feature, but that's still up to the notary to confirm that happens. And so with the demand and the situations that certainly have come up, we hope that will help continue to expedite the commerce that's happening in the state, and certainly to be passed on by the tallest elected official in the world, John Godfrey. Now it gives me the privilege of forwarding it to Rick Clayburgh, who's the president of the North Dakota Bankers Association, and he's just a regular sized guy.
Thank you, Al. Michelle, and thank you, and Eric, thank you, and to the Greater North Dakota Association for putting this call together. I think some really important parts, the CARES Act, which was just passed by the Senate yesterday, and hopefully the House will be acting on it tomorrow from the reports we're receiving and off to the president. And once that occurs, there's going to be a lot of capital, a lot of money that's going to be flowing into the country and here into North Dakota. I'm speaking on behalf of the financial institutions, which actually includes banks and credit unions in the state. But specifically to the banks, we have 85 banks that do business in North Dakota. They have over 300 facilities across the state. And I want you to know that despite the fact that many folks are in self-quarantining, our banks are open, our financial institutions are open and ready to serve their customers. They may have restrictions on their lobby being closed to walk-in traffic, but you can do business with your financial institution by phone, by appointments, and certainly through drive-thrus, mobile applications, and online applications. Our banks in this situation are well capitalized. We are in a strong position to help the communities. In fact, the 85 institutions in the state, we have over $40 billion in deposits in the state of North Dakota, ready to go to work for the citizens of North Dakota. Also know that both nationally and in the state of North Dakota, your financial institution is considered an essential service. And that meaning that if something were to occur in the state, banks will continue to be open, financial institutions will continue to be open, and you'll be able to access your money. I can tell you that your financial institution is the safest place to keep your money. It is safe, sound, and secure, and insured by both the FDIC and also the NCUA. Your bank is prepared to help you. They have pandemic plans in place, and they have business interruption plans in place. They are ready, willing, and able to assist. And the reason I say that, the passage of the CARES Act includes an important provision, the Payroll Protection Program, which is probably the most important part of the discussion in our call today, is going to provide a lot of money across the country and here in North Dakota to help employers keep their employees employed during this difficult time in the beginning of the pandemic here in our country. To go into that and to talk about the role that your financial institution will play in that is Al Hout, with the Small Business Administration here in North Dakota to talk about the CARES Act and the role that it will play in helping all of our employers in the state of North Dakota. Thank you. Al, take it away.
Thank you, Rick. Just want to confirm I'm coming through okay.
Yes,
Can
Al,
you
we
hear
got
me?
you. Yes, Al.
Okay, good enough. Thank you. And thank you, Department of Commerce and Greater North Dakota Association for allowing me the opportunity to share some information on the SBA programs to help out in this unique times. I'm going to talk a little bit about our current economic injury disaster loans that are available today, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about the proposed legislation that that will be a real game changer. So starting out, first of all, want to apologize on behalf of SBA. We had to take our disaster loan assistance application portal down for a time being yesterday. We had to do some maintenance and try to upgrade some of the capacity on it, part of the bandwidth, adding bandwidth to it. So hopefully that should be up and running again today. If not hopeful, I know it is up and running today. If you're one of the applicants that ran into problems yesterday, you may have to go in and clear your cache from your internet settings. I've been told that a few clients have had that problem today, and once they went in and cleared out their cache, they've been able to get back into the system. One thing I want to mention about the economic injury disaster loan is it is just that. It is a loan from SBA, directly from SBA to small business clients and some private nonprofits. But it's a loan as we have it today. The program as it's defined today is a loan and has to be repaid back. I mentioned that when we talked about some of the other programs that are pending, there are some forgiveness aspects of that. And as Rick said, the frontline people on that is going to be your local lender. So I'm encouraging all clients to reach out to their local lender, at least to start the discussion, so that when this does get approved, there is the open line of communication. One thing I should note too, when we talk about our system getting a little bogged down yesterday, you know, there is 73,000 small businesses in North Dakota. There's 30 million small businesses across the country. All of them have been impacted by this coronavirus. I like the stimulus packages that are coming out there because it's kind of a divide and conquer. As Rick said, there's 85 banks in North Dakota with 300 locations. In our lending database, lenders, individual loan officers, credit underwriters that we deal with in North Dakota, there's 745 individuals that we will be reaching out to in the coming weeks once things get finalized on this stimulus package. So it is a divide and conquer, and it will streamline things and hopefully provide quicker and better access. Back to the economic injury disaster loan, these are working capital loans that are set up to help businesses meet their financial obligations, their working capital needs, had the disaster not occurred. Again, it's a loan, so you must show repayment ability. The nice thing is that the repayment ability is over 30 years is our maximum term, maximum loan amount $2 million, and the interest rate is set statutorily at 3.75%. We also do require collateral, and we may, in many instances, look at personal assets to help secure this loan. When you're looking at the application, we've had a number of inquiries in our office about how much money do I request and where do I request that in the system. We're recommending you look at what obligations you would have within the next probably 60 days and calculate how much you need to cover those obligations. On the online application portal, there's a box 22 that allows you to provide a description, and that's where you would say, I need X amount of dollars for payroll, mortgage payment, utility payments, etc. Another question comes in when I go into the application and it says I need to select the disaster I'm applying under, and they'll see multiple disaster declarations for North Dakota. That's because contiguous counties along our borders with Minnesota, South Dakota, and Montana also count for disasters on those other states. So you'll see if you're in Cass County, North Dakota, you pull in Cass County, you'll see a disaster declaration that says North Dakota in the headline, and that's the one you should be selecting. Finally, on the economic injury disaster loan, I know there's some people that filled out the application but couldn't quite upload all the documents. There's also an option to email supporting documentation to ela.doc@sba.gov. That should have been on the website. I know that email has been getting inundated a little bit. They try to clear it out and then it fills up. So you have to just keep at it. And they're also suggesting trying on lower internet times, evenings and on weekends. But rest assured, applicants will be given an opportunity to provide additional documentation once the loan officer reviews that application. Typically, a loan officer gets assigned an application, they review it, they'll have a list of questions, and they'll reach back to the applicant and say, I have these questions, I need this documentation, please provide it in 7 days. I've had some customers worried about, well, if I don't get my application in and submitted, I'm going to miss out on this opportunity. Again, Congress will provide additional dollars to support our traditional economic injury disaster loan program. So rest assured, if you don't get an answer in the next few days, a week or two, there's going to be money there. You'll still be able to access that program. Now, switching to the CARES Act, and I have to remind everybody that this is still all speculation until the legislation is approved. It got approved in the Senate. The House has to take it up, approve it, and then it goes to the president to sign. Once the president signs it, the executive office will send it over to SBA, and then our policymakers have to review that information and develop our notices and our guidelines, our operating procedures for implementation. It says specifically in the Act language that I believe it's SBA has 15 days to act on that. So the program should be available. By all accounts, Congress is going to approve it. The president said he's going to sign it. But setting expectations, it'll be a week or two before actual program guidelines come to our office here in North Dakota, and then we can turn it around and get it out to our 745 lenders. The information that I'm talking about today actually has not come through an official channel with SBA yet. Technically within SBA, we don't deal with programs until they're signed into law and submitted into policy at the national level. The information that I'm reviewing and going to share with you is notes that have been processed through the legislators in Washington and pushed down to different trade organizations. And Department of Commerce has done a nice job of assimilating that information and putting the highlights on their business and employer resources page on the ndresponse.gov. So it's a nice place to get the information so you don't have to take a lot of notes about what I'm talking about. To some of the specifics, and I'll try to just cover some of the highlights so we can get back on time. This program is, again, at the onset, a loan through a local financial institution, the 85 banks and credit unions that, and some credit unions, I should say, that are SBA participating lenders. Most, if not all, of those 85 banks are currently SBA participating lenders, and a handful of credit unions are. This program has to be processed through one of those participating lenders. It requires that lender to determine if the business was viable on February 15th and had employees that paid salaries and payroll taxes. The repayment is not necessarily, typically with SBA programs, we require that there's a repayment review and that there's a reasonable reassurance of repayment ability. Under this program, we are waiving that requirement to help streamline the process for the local lenders. That's not to say that if the business was not viable on February 15th, if we had a business that was struggling on February 15th before this coronavirus situation, then that business might not qualify for this program. But if it was operational and by all accounts it was in good standing with the local lender, then this loan would be available to them. We are waiving the upfront borrower and lender fees on this program, so there is no fees to pay with this. We are waiving some of the collateral and personal guarantee requirements, and we are waiving what we call the credit elsewhere requirement. Again, it's just something that we require the lenders to go through and review, but if we waive it, it should streamline the way the lenders can process these applications. Interest rates will be set by the local lender. There is maximums that SBA is going to charge on or allow the lender to charge, but the rate should be set by your local lender. Our guarantee is going to increase from 75 or 85%, depending on the loan amount, up to 100% guarantee on these loans through the local bank. So the local lender should have no risk that they will lose money associated with these loans. Maximum loan amount on this program, we're expanding that up to $10 million. Our typical maximum loan amount is $5 million, and we're allowing up to $10 million, and that's all to cover payroll costs, employee salaries, sick leave, insurance premiums, and operating costs such as mortgage payments and other debt. To be eligible, must be a small business, either with 500 employees or less, or based on SBA size standards, which in many cases go much higher than 500 employees, depending on what type of industry it is. Good rule of thumb in North Dakota, if you have 500 employees or less, you're going to qualify for this program. It also allows loans to be made to sole proprietors, independent contractors, and self-employed individuals, as well as certain private nonprofits and veterans organizations. Requirements, basic requirements for this program is that the individual borrower or applicant must certify that they have been adversely affected by the coronavirus and as such need financial assistance to help maintain their payroll and their general operating costs. There will be a certification sheet developed that will require the lenders to have in their files and maintain that for the life of the loan. There is a forgiveness option as part of this program, and it's somewhere around the amount of money that you would spend on your payroll for an 8-week period, including interest on mortgage loans, payments on utilities, etc. That is, there's a lot of details to be worked out on the forgiveness aspect of it, but that is a huge advantage in comparison to our traditional economic injury disaster loan. So being able to forgive a portion, if not all, of these Paycheck Protection Act loan programs is a huge advantage, and one that is why we are suggesting that all applicants reach out to their local lender to access these dollars when they become available in the coming weeks. Can't stress that enough. Now, there's also a part of the proposed stimulus CARES Act information that talks about adjustments to our traditional economic injury disaster loan that I started out with. It does expand some of the eligibility on the types of businesses that can apply for it. It also talks about waiving personal guarantees on some of the loans, likely up to $200,000, and that it also provides guidance from SBA to streamline these applications on the smaller amounts to get money into the hands of small businesses faster. It also has some loan forgiveness or grant options. There's a language in there that may be up to $10,000 to cover an immediate need of payroll in a form of a grant to meet the immediate needs. And then there's talk about a portion of the loan that would be eligible for forgiveness as well going forward. But those are all specific details that would need to be worked out. And again, because it's a modification to our existing economic injury disaster loans, it would be a direct loan from SBA, and they would applicants would have to go to our online disaster loan portal to apply. In the big picture, what we're hoping happens with all of this is once it's approved and we get the Paycheck Protection Program that's through your local lender, that will take some of the stress off of the SBA system for economic injury disaster loans and speed up the process. And then we're hoping that the modification to the existing economic injury disaster loans will provide similar benefits as well for those individuals that might not have a relationship with their lender or might not be able to get financing through their local lender. At the end of the day, there's going to be a number of options for small businesses to get the financing they need. We just need to have a little patience to get there, and start that by visiting with your local lender so you can get some of these processes in place so hopefully not delay it any further once the program is approved and the guidelines are issued. With that, I will turn it over to Eric with the Bank of North Dakota.
Good morning. Thank you, Al, and thank you everyone for putting this meeting together. As we understand our role in this, the broad shoulders in this economic recovery package are going to be the federal government and SBA. And as Al just indicated, the local banks rolling out the Payroll Paycheck Protection Act. As we see our role, this would be similar to what we've done in previous disasters, although we know that this is of a scale and size that we've not seen before. But our thoughts on this will be that there will be unmet needs as SBA programs roll out. We will continue to monitor, what those are. If there's niches that the Bank of North Dakota can play in supporting this economic recovery package. It also means that we will be working closely with our partner banks and credit unions to ensure that they have, adequate liquidity to meet the needs of their customers. We certainly understand that the Bank of North Dakota has a role. We just want to make sure that we're not duplicating efforts and want to streamline this as much as possible. We've taken a lot of questions from legislators and others about using legacy funds to provide small business loans. And I want to assure everyone that the Bank of North Dakota is poised to provide, needed liquidity and loans. It is of a financial position and strength. Over 15 years of good earnings, solid capital, that we are in a strong position to help with this economic recovery package. And when I say that, I mean, we have liquidity in the hundreds of millions of dollars and, stand poised and ready to work and find out those areas that need continuous support. So, we're here for you. We understand, this is our mission. This is what we were created for. we will roll up our sleeves and do whatever we can to assist with this package. One thing that I will tell you is that a lot of you business owners, I'm sure, have employees that may have student loans. We did have an announcement just recently that the Bank of North Dakota is going to provide up to 6-month payment deferments on all student loans. We are already starting to see those come in. We have a simple one-page electronic form that they can download and submit to us. To date, we've already done in the several thousands of those, either on the online or the automatic deferments. And in addition to that, we are also looking at some interest rate reductions. The Fed, as a lot of you know, has reduced interest rates through their Fed funds rate. That is going to be passed on to borrowers. Those that have variable rate student loans will immediately see an impact of a reduction by 1% starting April 1. Those who have a fixed rate, the Bank of North Dakota is working on a opportunity to reduce that rate across the board by as much as 1%. The Industrial Commission has met and asked us to further look at if there's more we can do there. So there are other opportunities within our portfolio to provide that kind of assistance, and we will continue to analyze those areas in the bank where we can help. But as noted, we do have a strong relationship with all of the banks that Rick and Al have talked about across the state. We have supported them for years, and we'll continue to do that. So with that, let me turn it over to Brian Klipfel. He is the Executive Director of Workforce Safety and Insurance and Job Services. So Brian.
Hey, good morning. The impact of the COVID-19 coronavirus on North Dakota workforce employers has raised a variety of questions related to unemployment insurance program. Although the situation is fluid and could change over time, I guess I'd like to address some of the more common questions we've had receiving from employers, including those changes from the governor's executive order from last week, Friday, March 20th. It should be noted that the unemployment insurance laws vary from state to state, just like other laws. And these updates relate only to North Dakota unemployment insurance system. Both the federal government and state of North Dakota are working as diligently and as quickly as possible to respond to the understanding changes resulting from the CARE Act that were just recently finalized. So first of all, I'll go through some of the things that were brought up in the governor's executive order last week, Friday, some changes that were made to the law. The first one, if your business declines or you need to close, lay off staff, or cut staff hours, your individual employment insurance account will not be charged for any benefits paid to employees you had to lay off. So it's not to your individual business, but it will be charged to the pool in general. If you are a business owner and you pay into the unemployment insurance system, you can file a claim if you must shut down your business. The executive order temporarily eliminates income reduction requirements for business owners, so you can do that. Contract workers, and those have always been a lot of calls and questions in on that, are not eligible to receive regular unemployment benefits, but there are some provisions in the CARE Act that will apply to them. Some other updated changes through federal guidance. If an employee is ill and cannot work due to COVID-19 but will return to work, the employee would be eligible to receive benefits based upon recent federal guidelines relating strictly to COVID-19. If an employee is quarantined and physically able to work, but can work from the quarantine location to other responses for other reasons, the employee would be eligible to receive benefits based upon the recent federal guidelines relating to strictly to COVID-19. Finally, with that CARE Act that passed last night, there are a couple of areas that I'd like to just talk about. There is a lot of money for unemployment benefits. One of the main ones that we've been talking about is there's an unprecedented expansion of unemployment insurance. The federal government would give jobless workers an extra $600 a week for months on top for 4 months on top of their state benefits. And North Dakota's state unemployment insurance benefit is approximately $460 a week on average. The Act also calls for pandemic unemployment assistance program. This program is similar to the disaster unemployment assistance programs we've had before, and are provide benefits those who are unemployed, partially unemployed, or work because of the virus and don't qualify for traditional benefits. This would include independent contractors, which there's a lot of them in the state, some self-employed, and some of the others that don't typically qualify for assistance, such as gig economy workers, who probably aren't eligible in many states. These benefits would mirror what's available in individual states. We have to wait for the U.S. DOL guideline on how the income for these workers will be documented. In these situations, it could mimic past disaster programs requiring some level of tax documents, or some cases an affidavit from the individual. So those are all things that we need to continue to work on. The legislation was also assist those who have their hours reduced by providing incentives to states to adopt work sharing programs, which allows employers to cut workers' hours but not lay them off. North Dakota does not have a work share program due to 60% earning disregard currently in North Dakota law. The disregard allows individuals to continue to work with reduced hours without impact on their unemployment insurance benefits up to certain levels. Furloughed workers typically qualify for unemployment insurance assistance so they can resolve the enhanced benefits under the stimulus program. I know there's been some talk about waiving that first week of eligibility. For us to reprogram our mainframe system, it would be a lot of work, especially at this time when we are getting a lot of unemployment insurance claims coming in. So that could be an issue, but I guess we're monitoring that, and we'll continue to work with USDA, DOL on that particular issue. And so that's a couple of the items that we have, and I guess that's about my time here too. So if there's any questions, I guess I'd just like to push that to the Commerce is a website, which they can refer back to ours for FAQs. Our phone lines are just getting overwhelmed for people calling in on unemployment insurance claims and so forth. So the more people we can get to use the website, it will be beneficial to all of us. So thank you, everybody.
And thank you, Brian. This is Michelle Comer again with the Commerce Department. Before I pass this back to Eric to close, when his speaker wasn't working a few moments ago, I want to take a moment to reiterate thanks to our congressional offices. I believe that Congressman Armstrong is on the line, possibly Senator Kramer, and I'm sure we have representation from all three of those offices. We've got just a little bit of insight into how hard those teams are working for us in Washington, and we just want to say thank you so much for being accessible, for working hard, and for representing North Dakota's needs. I also want to say thank you to the North Dakota officials that are collaborating on our economic resiliency team, Insurance Commissioner Godfried, Tax Commissioner Ryan Rauschenberger, Secretary of State Al Jaeger, and Ag Commissioner Goring, along with all of our other agency leaders and community partners. We couldn't do this without you. Now, you all likely came to this call with two questions. One, where do I get the money or assistance? And two, where can I get more information? You've heard a lot of this today. It was our intention to share with you at a very high level some of the things we're learning, but we know that you're going to need a lot more information as you work with your financial advisors and your banks, because there is not one right path for each business. You're going to have to consider the obligations that were created by the Coronavirus Families First Act. You're going to have to consider whether the disaster loan from SBA is right for you and or whether the assistance from the CARE Act is something that you need to look into. You're also going to have to factor in the changes to unemployment law. And let me stop to reiterate that the CARE Act is not final yet. We are studying this information real time. There was a unanimous vote last night with the Senate, but there is still further action to be taken before that is final. Now, as far as where can you get more information, that is exactly what the Commerce Department's commitment is to you. We are condensing thousands of pages of information into easy to read, easy to consume guides like what the CARE Act means to you, including infographics to make a process easy. You're going to see that information posted on our website at ndresponse.gov, where you will click on the business employer button, and then from there, the financial resources button. So again, we really will appreciate your feedback both after this call and in the coming weeks, and hope that you will choose to continue to join us. So with that, I would like to turn it over to my partner, Eric Spencer from the Greater North Dakota Chamber of Commerce. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Comer. And thank you to the 974 business leaders who registered for this important business briefing today. By the end of today, the recording of this call and a summary will be available at ndresponse.gov and on the Commerce website. We encourage you to go there. And in addition, there's going to be a survey after the call or after this meeting to get your feedback on if this information is useful. We want these calls over the course of time that we do them to be very, very useful for you. And so please give us your feedback. In addition, when we schedule the next meeting for next Thursday at 11 a.m. In the registrations, add your questions, give us ideas for additional topics you'd like us to cover, or if you'd like us to go deeper into some topics, because we want this to be extremely valuable for all businesses in North Dakota. And so with that, I want to thank you all for taking the time to join us today. We'd like to thank the Governor, Lieutenant Governor, and Commerce Commissioner Comer for their leadership and accessibility, as well as all of our appointed and elected officials. Thank you so much.